I want y'all to be mindful of what you call a coincidence, especially when it comes to meeting someone perhaps you might even consider at the time the love of your life. So I had to journey back to a moment in time to where I met a certain somebody in New York City. I was getting off of work and doing my daily routine of trying to get home to Brooklyn. And there was a train that I would have to connect to in order to pick up my local train to take me, close to where I was living. So, you enter a New York City subway platform, it's crowded around this time. And where I stopped to kind of rest and wait on the train, there was a nice looking young man, perfectly positioned across from me. And I couldn't help but notice that they were reading a book. And I remember the title of the book. It was How to Become a Millionaire. But I got on the train, so you know where this is going. When I said we, I got on the train, because I had to go to Broadway Junction to pick up my local train, which was the J train. And you have to go through a building and go up an escalator and get to the platform for the local J train, which I got on the train. Mind you, I'm just moving about the day. It's a regular routine for me. And I'm on the J train, and when you're on the subway train, when you start to approach your stop, some people like to get up. That was me. I'd like to get up before the train stopped and position myself in front of the door somewhat. Guess who comes and positions themselves in front of me, sat down, and wanted to make a little small talk with me. So I was up for it, but at the same time, I'm thinking, that's the same guy that, I would looked across and saw in Manhattan when I got off work waiting for the train. And I don't know if I mentioned it to him, but the recollection was there, obviously, because they stood out. Nothing else around them. All the many people, the crowded platform, I didn't see nobody but that person. Like I said, they perfectly positioned themselves for me to be able to have a clear view of them. And I know this now. But so he comes in, I guess it was this introduction or whatever, and kind of made me laugh or whatever. So I'm thinking there's no harm in this. So I thought it was going to turn into nice to meet you sort of thing. But wouldn't you know it, we end up walking a couple of blocks. Kind of had to pivot a little bit, turn down and go down one block and turn and get to where it was, the street that I resided on. And wouldn't you know it, this person, guess what, lived on the same darn street. Basically, I'm not even going to give y'all detail. Y'all nosy. Y'all going to try to research stuff. Y'all need to know all that. What you do need to know is this person ended up inviting me out on a date. And I obliged. I said yes. Everything was popping. I was 28, 29. I was good to go. Single and fancy free. So we ended up going out, whatever. But what y'all, you have privy to knowing is this person basically turned my life upside down, only for God to come in and turn it right side up again. But it had to be for this experience of me knowing now that I was dealing with a warlock to be able to share this information with you. We're talking 20 years ago, but the warfare that I experienced was nothing I've ever even imagined. Nothing I ever imagined for my life to happen, and it did, and more. It was a movie. It played out like a movie. But the coincidence, now I know the revelation of it all almost brought me to tears not too long ago, because it just hit me like a ton of bricks that perhaps this person followed me to work one day. Perhaps this person waited for me to get off work. So they knew my goings-ons. So they were a stalker. They were a predator. I didn't know that. They knew me way before I knew them. So it was no coincidence that we wound up on the platform. Mind you, he wasn't working. He had no reason to even be in Union Square, as huge as even just lower Manhattan is where we were. He had no reason to be there. I found this out later. None. But to know now, 20 years later, this person stalked me from the very get-go of day one. The lion comes to kill, steal, destroy. This person did everything in their might to try to destroy me. You won't believe the spell work, the black magic I was exposed to, only for me to be able to fully tap into my spiritual gifts by way of being a child of God and getting information, receiving information, divine information, for me to even decipher what the hell, literal hell was going on in my life. I had no one to tell me these things. I grew up in the church, but what you're hearing message wise, it's almost as if, oh, that doesn't apply to me. Not knowing I would meet a demon in flesh, in full flesh, very attractive, charismatic. But to see the flip side of that, I mean, it just destroys, how you feel about human beings, mankind, because this was supernatural. This was definitely a supernatural experience. So I would say to my young people, watch out for those coincidences. Watch out for those bumping into somebody. That was perhaps planned. It was strategized. You were watched. They calculated every move because it was an agenda to begin with. It was an agenda to come and try to destroy you. But if you're like me, you'll live to tell the story. What story I will tell? Maybe none. But this is just a warning to you all. Before you get into that tar that you can't get out of, or it's going to take everything in you to try to see your way out. But again, for me, it connected me closer to God. Closer to God, to where there's no question who delivered me. Y'all be safe.